Hello and welcome back to the Freak Show. I'm Jacqueline Steele Thurmond. I am joined by my husband, Sam Thurmond.
Yep.
And today, this is episode 32. We are going to be talking about healing your mind and transforming your thoughts for higher frequency living. This is one of our favorite topics and one that we keep coming back to because I think we keep refining it in our own lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, as you continue to grow and face those situations where you're put to the test, it forces you to grow. And today we're not just talking about positive thinking, we're talking about real transformation. We'll also touch on the science behind it and behind thought transformation and how healing your mind and can also lead to emotional and physical well-being.
Yes, it can.
very much
You
so.
sound so scientific. Sometimes, as like a funny side note, Sam will listen to these podcast episodes, and truly, like the information is very important. But as I listen to him, or as I watch him listening to these episodes, all of the voices on them are all the same, and they're like, the mitochondria do a split test, and then
not our podcast. You're talking about other podcasts that I listen to. Yeah,
Was I not clear about that? Sorry.
I don't think so.
And
But
then they split atoms and go into the stratosphere. And you're like riveted, and I'm like pulling my hair out because I cannot listen to one more word of it because it's so boring.
yeah, I like the heady stuff.
You definitely like the heady stuff. I guess I like a little bit more entertainment.
Yeah. Well, it kind of, I feel like it is calming in a way, like to just really kind of dive into the nuts and
I
bolts
can
of
see
stuff.
that.
But
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally understand that. It's kind of meditative for you. And I think for me it's not meditative because I just want it to be over.
yeah, yeah, I rarely get to pick the group podcasts to listen to when we're on the road.
Well, I think we should start by talking about why healing the mind starts with transforming thoughts. And I think if we think of our minds like a garden, it really brings home this idea. If we are planting negative thoughts, the plants that are going to result are not going to be very fruitful, right? But if we are planting positive thoughts, even more neutral thoughts than negative thoughts, our mind garden is going to be healthier.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to fall into those negative thought patterns, and I think that we are evolutionarily wired to revert to like a more protection oriented mindset. And what that means is that we're going to worry about, things that might happen or could happen. So if we're not super aware of our thoughts, it's really easy to fall into those negative thought patterns. But yeah.
Well, I think our thoughts shape our experiences. And I think a real world example of this might be, let's say let's say the holidays are coming up, which they are, and you have a couple of family members that are triggering, that are maybe just their emotional intelligence is just not really there. And so you go into the holiday or the time spent with them thinking this is going to be awful, and then it is awful. So it's kind of like manifest destiny, right?
Self-fulfilling.
A self-fulfilling prophecy. But I've experimented a little bit with this for people or family members who can be a little hard for me to be around, where I reframe my thoughts before spending time with them. And we do have some calibrations in the app for this too. But I reframe my thoughts going, you know what? This person is doing their best. They were a little child like I was. They are speaking from their own experience. And while it might be negative and hard to be around, at the same time, that is their experience. And they deserve the dignity of having their own experience, right? And so it helps me to reframe my thoughts, and it helps me to prepare myself for a much more simpatico sort of interaction with them.
Well, I think people, excuse me, have a Chipotle throat. I just ate Chipotle. But I think people will match your energy. So if you're going into it with a negative mindset around the relationship, they're going to feel that and meet you in that negative energy. Whereas if you are, and they'll do that unconsciously, but if you're conscious about your energy going into it as being a positive thing, it's much more likely that the outcome of the interaction will be positive because you're consciously making an effort, and that's guiding your mindset and your energy, and they're more subconsciously just operating. So they're going to most likely meet you where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. And there is a connection too between our thoughts and our physical bodies. Years ago, I read a book by Louise Hay called You Can Heal Your Life. And it's incredible how negative thought patterns can cause physical ailments. So, for instance, I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I was diagnosed with this in 2020. It's been a journey, but one of the thought patterns with Hashimoto's and thyroid issues in general is, when is it going to be my turn? And also holding back emotion. So not speaking out when you need to speak out, you're holding it in. And I have found that as I liberate myself, it's interesting, my voice just got a little clogged, but as I liberate myself and I speak more of what is on my mind. And I've always been a fairly outspoken person, but I'm also very aware of other people's feelings. So if I feel like I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings, I generally hold back, even if it's to my own detriment. Not to be a victim here. I'm just trying to be self-aware, right? But it's interesting that as I have pursued what I really want to pursue, and just gone for it without anybody's permission, as I have become more vocal and created better boundaries around my time and my energy, my numbers can still go up sometimes and dip a little bit depending on how stressed I am. But I feel like overall, my health continues to become better and better and better. And I'm thinking better thoughts instead of thinking a thought that's negative, like, oh, when is it going to be my turn? I'm not going to have enough time. I should be further by now. Now I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, if I can create an app in 4 months, how long is it going to take me to create this and this and this and this and this? And it completely reframes the way that I look at my life. And that's true for so many ailments. So let me have a little caveat here. If you are struggling with a health issue, I don't want you to feel like it's your fault. It's not always connected to a negative thought. However, it might be helpful to consider how negative thoughts may have contributed to how you are feeling now. Because I know for me, before I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, I was in just a tough place mentally. We were living in a place that I felt very suffocated. It was the middle of the pandemic, and so there's so much fear swirling around, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, I was diagnosed with a literal physical ailment from the pool of emotions I was experiencing and the thoughts that I had on repeat. So I think, again, if we bring it back to today's topic, our thoughts are so deeply powerful. And people talk about mindset, but I don't think we go deep enough into mindset and how deeply it affects us. Because if we did, then everybody would be monitoring their thoughts all day long. Because monitoring your thoughts and choosing to believe more life-affirming thoughts and allowing those to be on repeat literally transforms the trajectory of your life.
Yeah. Well, it's not the default mode of our minds. So it does take effort, and you have to be aware. And, we know this, but we still slide back, into those fearful thoughts and those less productive ways of thinking all the time.
All the time.
But we know that we have to pull ourselves out and build that muscle. But to me, it makes so much sense. I mean, our thoughts are in our mind, and so much of the chemical reactions that take place in our bodies are as a result of our mind. You know, our brains sending the signals to release all the different chemicals in our bodies, whether that's cortisol or dopamine, whatever it is. So if those are not imbalanced, and if those are being triggered in an unhealthy way, it makes total sense that it would correlate to have a physical impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So being aware of the inner dialogue that you are having with yourself on a daily basis is the beginning of mind healing and healing your thoughts. It's bringing that awareness.
So I would say this is kind of like the bridge between, you know, some people might call it the woo-woo self-help kind of mindful stuff. But the bridge between that and just the actual physiology of how our brains and how our bodies work.
Mm-hmm. So I think we should talk now a little bit about the science behind thought transformation, because there is actual science behind how changing your thoughts can heal your mind and body. And when you change the way that you think, you're literally rewiring your brain. And this concept is called neuroplasticity. It's the brain's ability to form and reorganize synaptic connections based on your experiences and thoughts. So as a child, you form all of these, what are they called? Synaptic connections. And that is part of your like base neuroplasticity. But the beautiful thing about our brains is that we can reorganize them, we can change them. And so as we shift our thoughts and create new thought patterns that we reinforce by thinking them over and over and over, we can literally change the neuroplasticity in our minds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, neural pathways. You're just basically giving your brain new directions.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, you know, you hear a lot about people who do ayahuasca or MDMA and have those experiences. And that's actually what's happening is those chemical reactions that take place during those experiences are
creating neural pathways.
Right. Yeah. It adds that neuroplasticity element to the mind. So when you hear people talk about it opening their mind, it's basically just becoming more flexible and able to create other ways of thinking and other perspective.
Yeah. A couple examples here. I've read, I don't remember what text I read it in, but it was a cancer patient who decided that they were going to, within the therapy that their doctor prescribed, watch comedy movies, and only comedy movies and like really fun, vibrant entertainment. And they credit overcoming cancer, well, to their doctors as well, but because they changed their mindset through thinking higher vibrational thoughts.
Yeah, and we're not saying that like that's what cured the cancer. We're not we're not trying to make that leap whatsoever, but it
these
could have an
patients
impact.
said it made a huge impact. Yeah. And then another prime example of this is Dr. Joe Dispenza. After he was hit by a car on his bike, I believe, he was told that he was going to have surgery and he would probably never walk again. And he laid in his hospital bed and said, I don't want to have this surgery. I don't want to have to go through this. And he spent, from what I understand, don't quote me on this, but days rewiring his own brain. Mm-hmm. And he healed his spinal injury through his thoughts, through his mind.
Yeah. I think the mind is extremely powerful, and I don't think that it's beyond reach that's doable. I think it's amazing. But you know, I still have my my own thoughts and opinions. I think our minds,
I believe it. I totally believe it. And I also, tangent here, I also wonder if this is how Jesus healed people. Mm-hmm. He thought higher vibrational thoughts, he touched them, and he taught them to think higher vibrational thoughts. And those vibrations and frequencies that were emanating from him were so high that it literally created healing.
Yeah. Plus Jesus is God, so he's got that going for him.
Well,
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I'm just messing with you.
All right. Well, so yeah, and this isn't just about thinking positively and taking a negative thought and turning it into something positive. It's about consistently retraining your mind to operate from a higher frequency by thinking better thoughts. A question that I ask myself often is this a loving thought? Is this a healing thought? And if it's not, then I try and reframe it. So it can be something simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's talk about some practical tools to heal your mind by transforming your thoughts. Like we mentioned earlier, the first step in healing your thoughts is to bring awareness to what you are thinking on a regular basis, to pay attention to the thoughts that keep repeating in your head. Are they limiting? Are they fearful? Are they negative?
Yeah. So once you're aware of those, it's a matter of evaluating, like, is this true or is it not true? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill? Am I
Which we
catastrophizing
both do
this?
at times.
Am I catastrophizing what's going on? And so often that's the case. So once you're aware of it, you evaluate the thought from a calm state. You remove yourself from it, allow yourself to have the emotion that you're having, but then evaluate it from, as much of a non-biased standpoint as you can.
Mm-hmm. So first step is awareness. Second step is reframing, and piggybacking off of what you said. For every negative or limiting thought, reframe it into a more empowering one. So if you have the constant thought, I'll never be successful, you can change it to, I'm taking steps every day to reach my success. And I think this particular reframing is really important because sometimes it can be hard from going from, I'm never going to be successful to, I'm super successful. It can be hard. You sometimes need steps on that process stairway, right? And this going from, I'll never be successful to, I'm taking steps every day to reach my success allows you to take action within that thought. I'm taking steps every day toward my success. And you can do that with anything. You may think, oh, I'm fat and ugly. And it may be hard to reframe to, I'm beautiful and I'm thin and blah, blah, blah. But you can reframe it to, I'm exercising and I'm eating well every day. And that is contributing my whole body transformation. And do you see how or hear how just in those couple of sentences, the vibration immediately increases, the frequency increases?
Mm-hmm.
It allows you to start believing that thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is one of the key points here is we have to, when we are reframing and training our minds, choose thoughts that we can actually believe. It can be really hard to go from 0 to 1,000, but it's not necessarily as hard to go from 0 to 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
So choose thoughts that you can actually believe and reframe them like that. Why don't you give an example of
Well, what I was
something?
going to say is it's maybe not an example, but is applicable is I think when you're in that moment to help yourself believe it is if you think about, things from the past or challenges from the past that in the moment seem so big and so daunting, but now looking back down the road 5, 10 years, one, they don't seem as big, and two, you see how they led you down the path to where you are today. So you see that they were the stepping stone to where you wanted to go. So they're reference points. And I think that reference points of success are super helpful in applying those to whatever you're going through today. If you've had success in the past, it's most likely you're going to continue to have success if you're still maintaining those good fundamentals and habits. So whatever you're going through in the moment, reverting back and thinking of something similar in the past that you overcame and how it directed you to where you are today will help you to believe whatever you're going through now, you're going to come out the other end of it and be successful.
Yeah. So practical tools to heal your mind by transforming your thoughts, bring awareness to them, even write them out if you feel like you need to. If they're a particularly sticky, nasty thought, write it out and write out a better belief, write out a better thought. Reframing, like we said, take that thought, make it better. That was just redundant, but it's important. Next step, I would say, is visualization. Visualization is you guys all know what visualization is. It's when you picture what you want. I think for me, visualization can be hard because I have a little bit of ADD. And so it's hard for me to sit for a long period of time and visualize. However, I think vision boards are extremely helpful. And for me in particular, journaling is more effective. And I call it future frequency composing. I've done a calibration on this in the app. I've talked about it on Instagram. But what I like to do is write as my future self. So I go through all of the things that I'm experiencing as my future self in this life that I am creating actively every day. And by doing that, I start experiencing the emotions of what this future self is going to feel right now. And when you get into a state of experiencing those feelings in the present, it creates so much momentum and energy. And it, in my mind, allows you to draw those things closer faster because you are matching that frequency.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think visualization is great, and I do visualize. I don't talk much, but I visualize. But as far as visualization goes, sometimes I don't like that word to be the cue, because I think it is more about the feeling and the energy. So if I'm meditating, I'm focused more on, like you said, what does it feel like? Like what do I literally vibrate like when I've achieved my goal, or when I have become the person that I want to become? Because you are pretty much, making that quantum leap by changing your energy into that person.
100%.
So now you are in the present moment, what you want to be in the future, if that makes sense.
And if you want help in doing that, then use the Freak app. That's exactly why we created it. It's like a pocket best friend for when you need a mind check, for when you need a boost of encouragement and confidence, for when you need a little bit of comfort after you've experienced something hard. It is literally a pocket best friend, and we designed it to be able to be used at any time of day during any situation for as little or as much time as you need it for. So 1 minute, 20 minutes, whatever. It's there to help you shift your thoughts so that you can heal your mind and live a better life.
Yeah.
And I'd say too here, it's all about consistency. If you one day are really aware of your thoughts and you're choosing better thoughts, you're going to feel it. But if the next day you slip back in, and look, I do this, so no judgment. But if you slip back into those old patterns, that old neuroplasticity is going to be reinforced. So this is something that, just like building muscle at the gym, it requires us to be aware of it and to constantly be lifting those mental weights.
But it's easy because it's just a snap decision in the moment to change that thought.
Yeah. Let's round this out and talk about emotional and physical healing through thought transformation. Like we've mentioned earlier in the episode, our minds and bodies are deeply, deeply connected. And the thoughts we carry can manifest in physical ways. And stress and anxiety and even physical ailments can sometimes be traced back to unhealthy thought patterns. And we have seen this in our own lives. And I think it would behoove us to maybe just talk a little bit more about how negative thoughts can contribute to stress and anxiety. We've talked about the physical ailments, but let's talk about how specific thoughts that you and I have dabbled in have contributed to our stress and anxiety.
Well, I think that what happens is when you let that first, it goes back to what we were originally talking about, and you made the illustration of the garden. And if you don't weed the garden of the bad thoughts, it's going to become overrun. So I think that's exactly what happens. Is it starts with, I think of like when I lay my head down. That's when I lay my head down at night to go to sleep. That's usually when my wheels really start turning, or when my thoughts can go sideways. During the day, when I'm active, when I'm being proactive and doing things, it's not an issue. But when I lay down, when it's time to actually rest my mind, that's when it so often kicks into gear. And it's just that one little thought, that one thread that leads to the next thing, that leads to the next thing. And then all of a sudden, it's just this huge snowball of these negative thoughts. And I always pictured it in my mind like, the old Rolodexes, the cards that people used to keep on their desks for contacts. it's just like my mind is like going through the Rolodex, thinking of all the different negative things to worry about. So it's really, for me, all about immediately stopping that initial threat or that initial thought and just putting it out of mind and thinking about something I'm grateful for, or just saying, nope, you're not going to go down this rabbit hole right now, because otherwise that's when the stress and the anxiety just really, really starts to build.
Mm-hmm. I think I read a book by Byron Katie years ago, and she has 4 questions that she asks about each thought that comes in that's negative. And the first one is this true? What does it feel like if I believe this? What does it feel like if I am without this thought? And I forget the 4th one. But I love that question. What does it feel like if I am without this thought?
Yeah.
I may be paraphrasing that, but you get the general idea. Like, how would your life be different if you didn't think that thought? And it is possible to stop thoughts as they've come in or as they come in. And you've helped me with that. I'll mention, a fear that I have or something, and you'll say something as simple as, you don't have to believe that. And you don't have to go down that road right now. It really can be that simple. Okay, let's go through our takeaways. We have 3 minutes left before this is going to shut off. So, key takeaways here. Healing your mind starts with transforming your thoughts. By becoming aware of your mental patterns, reframing negative thoughts, and consistently operating from a higher frequency, you can heal not only your emotional state, but sometimes your physical health too.
And remember, the mind is incredibly powerful. Your thoughts have the ability to literally shape your reality. So why not choose thoughts that align with the life you actually want to create?
Yeah. And don't forget, if you need a little help, the Freak app is always here to support you and to help you stay on track. We designed it with so much heart, with so much love, and it will help you tune your energy. Okay, I want to leave you with a question, and it is this. What's one limiting or negative thought that's been holding you back? How can you start reframing that thought today and begin the process of healing your mind? Take time this week to reflect on it and see how that shifts and changes your energy. Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you guys, and we will connect with you in next week's episode. Live on purpose and
live on frequency.
Thank you so much for listening to The Freak Show with Sam Thurmond and me, Jacqueline Steele Thurmond. We would love to connect with you via our website, beckonliving.com, and on social media.
You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Beckon Living, and you can join our email list to receive uplifting messages, podcast and business updates, and discounts on high-frequency products just for our freaky community.
Cheers to high frequency living.